Hey everyone, it is season 2. We officially have decided to create season 2 because it was getting hard for us to organize, to be honest with you, the episodes. So we
We had
decided,
so many.
yeah, it was a sign from the universe that we are ready for season 2. So welcome to season 2 and
Yeah, that's awesome.
2021. We are
Oh my
officially
goodness.
at the time of posting and sharing this episode in 2021. So we hope everyone had an end, a good end, a challenging
Yes.
end to 2020, whatever it was for you, but you've moved through and now we're
Just an
ready.
end, right? No
That's right.
judgment.
And even then it's just a made up end, really.
Right.
It's the conditioning, and we're going to talk
A
some about that
constructed
today.
end. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, it's Tia here, and did we even do that?
No, we didn't. And I'm Kim. I'm Kim. Yeah.
We're flowing with what is, but we're really excited to talk about today. But I'm not going to tell you what it is yet till we read the quote, because that's what we do. So this is by Luke Goss. I'm exhausted by the idea that everyone is presenting this perfect life.
I know, right? It just makes you feel like you want to just breathe just on that in itself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the exhaustion is real. I know
Yeah.
so many people are feeling exhausted, and not just the exhaustion of winter, the exhaustion of Corona, quarantine, holidays. What we really wanted to talk about today was the exhaustion of wearing these masks. So to start off with season 2, we just wanted to revisit the masks that we wear and what it feels like to remove them and to have to put them back on. And that to us is what's most exhausting. What do you think, Kim?
100%. And you had said before that especially when you start to experiment with taking off one mask or several masks, and you get a glimpse of that freedom to be authentically yourself, to be your true self. You feel that freedom that when you start to put it back on, either consciously or maybe, unconsciously, because there's another layer, there's another layer to the onion of that particular mask. So for example, well, I've shared so many times the masks that I typically put on are perfectionist masks, the rescuer, and people pleaser. There are others, but those would be my top 3.
Right.
And while I have worked at removing them, and a lot of the energy around those has dissipated, there's layers to each of those. Like you get through these working layers of the perfectionist, and I'm like, okay, so I'm not a perfectionist about my hair. Even I was playing with my hair earlier. Like, okay, what's going on with the hair, right? So my hairdresser watches the video. What do you think, Ed? Right. So either the hair, the house, like all that stuff, like, the grades, all that, like, okay, so that maybe, so that maybe I'm better with, but is there still a level or a layer to me being a mom? Right. And so how does that show up? Am I trying, even the rescuer, like, okay, in many ways I have released, I think that's the key word I'm looking for. I've released a lot of energy and I've removed the mask, but then there's just these other layers. So it's a continual journey, if you will, and it's a continual work in progress. And then there are times when we are just with certain people that we make this conscious choice to put it on.
Right.
Because for me, sometimes, quite honestly, it does feel scary to be vulnerable and go in the arena. We had an episode on this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just, rather than beating myself up when I'm faced with those moments of, okay, I want to step into the arena and be vulnerable with this person, but I'm right on the cusp, I'm on the edge of allowing myself to open up, and I pull back. I put the mask on, I play it safe.
Right.
So that's another way of looking at it. I
Yeah.
choose to just then play it safe.
So can
go
I ask a
ahead.
question?
Yeah.
So, that's not necessarily a perfectionist people pleaser
No.
mask, right? So
Right.
let's talk about what that mask is,
Yeah.
because it's
Is
not
it the vulnerability mask?
That's, yeah. And that's what I was thinking. And the rejection, it's not a
100%.
rejection. I don't know if we could call it a rejection mask, but it's a fear of they're going to
Yes.
see the true me
Yes.
and they're going to reject it anyway.
Exactly. So I cover over, I armor up. That's Brene Brown's languaging. You can say armor up. You can say put my mask back on, which to me translates into, like I just said, I then just play it safe.
Right.
And I play small.
Right.
Because to really put myself out there. But this is what we really wanted to highlight. When I do that, or when any of us does that. Now, there are some times when it may be safe and smart to do that, but what I'm talking about is not. In this case, this is just purely my fear of being rejected by the other.
Right.
And that
or
just
not seen.
And not see, well, right. That's more it. Like the person's not going to see me, therefore I will feel rejected, which is a very, very old energy. It's so old. I could tell you, pinpoint back to probably when it started. But
and you're told that you've changed. You're not the same person you once were.
Oh, you mean if I then become, more vulnerable and put myself out there? Yeah. Like why?
Because that's why you're putting it back on.
Yes. So, and then that's a whole other thing. We can say mask / roles, because it's also the roles, right? Totally. Well, you're no longer fitting in that role that I'm used to you being in. I'm used to you being mom, wife, daughter, sister, this type of friend, the caregiver, the this, the that.
Right.
Well, those roles and those masks are suffocating. They zap us of our life force.
Exactly.
They can just really zap us. So when I'm in those situations of being right on the precipice of trying to be vulnerable with someone and to share myself to be seen, and I feel that fear and anxiety rising up in me and saying, nope, don't do it. And I just back away and I put the mask on.
Yep.
I'm just looking at that as being an opportunity that's where I know I need to do some more healing work. That's all it means. It doesn't mean beat myself up. It doesn't mean, oh, you're weak or this or what's wrong with you. Just speak up. Just speak up and say what you have to say. It doesn't work like that. It just means I'm not ready. I'm like working toward getting to that point of being able to step into the arena with that person.
Right.
And mostly because in particular, the people that I'm thinking about, the relationship is worth it. The relationship is worth the risk, but I'm struggling on my side of things. On my side, I need to just clean that up because it's so old.
Right.
And heal that part of me.
And I think another piece to bring into that is what we talked about earlier too, is there's the whole brain piece.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
And how the reason we've continued to get to that edge and back away is because of how we've done that, and it's caused rejection or caused hurt feelings or whatever. Whether it's true or not, it's the perception.
Yep.
And so understanding that there are the layers upon layers of even taking it off, choosing to be vulnerable and having to break through all that conditioning, break that neural pathway and jump. But again, and I love that you brought it up, it doesn't mean we do this with everyone.
Right.
So you have to also understand that being vulnerable with someone who has no boundaries is going to take advantage of you. It's not necessarily who you want to do this with. If you need to, go for it. But no, it's also okay to keep that mask on, but it can be suffocating. I don't know how many times people have had to I don't know, go to a work meeting or a big, family reunion or something to that effect. And you have to show up. You just play small, just flow with it. And it's exhausting. How many people have gone to that? Have you? And, a situation and you leave and you're so exhausted. And it's not because you put in physical effort, but you took so much emotional, spiritual work to camouflage.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question now.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to tip this upside down. I'm going to tip this whole thing on its head. So if it is exhausting and it is suffocating and it is zapping us of our energy, why are we still making the choice to be in that job where we have to go to that meeting and listen to that boss? Why are we going to those family reunions, those family events that we know are going to zap us because we're going to just play a part, play a role?
Right.
Why do we stay in that relationship? Why do we still meet with that friend once a month for coffee or tea when we know darn well how the conversation is going to go? Right? Why?
Yeah.
Why do we still?
Yeah. I mean,
is it fear? It's fear of really, like, who am I to just step out and claim this life for myself?
Right.
Because a number of things could happen. One, I could end up completely alone. So there's a fear of being, again, rejected all alone.
Right.
And then it's this, like, who am I to think I'm not, like, who do you think you are, kind of thing. So all of that is all still conditioning. They're all masks.
Totally.
If that's the underlying, that's what it is.
Exactly. And it's just those layers and the stories we've been told over the years. Right. Yeah. And, in response to the who am I, it's the Marianne Williamson, who are you not?
I know.
To shine. That's
we
not
have
her exact
one
words, but it's
life.
that same, right. And I mean, I love that quote of hers. It's like, who are you not to? And when you shine, you give permission to others to do the same. And I can speak for myself because I still feel suffocated. I mean, I still succumb. But when I don't, and it has gotten, I put the mask on less and less.
Yeah.
And I have to preface all of this is with quarantine, we also aren't in as many situations of having to put the mask on. Because there's not as many social events, there's not as many in-person meetings, whatever. So I will preface it with that. So it'll be interesting to see how this transfers whenever life comes into what the next iteration of what normal life, in quote, looks like. But I know for me, it is such a stark contrast now because I have taken off the mask to my level of awareness of who I am, right? So we talked about that too. It's an evolution. So who I am today, in 20 years, I am going to have so much of a better awareness of who I truly am because I will be continually doing this work. So as for who I am today, the contrast between speaking my truth, being okay with boundaries, not fulfilling these roles is so liberating. So when I put it back on, it is truly suffocating. There's no other word for it. And so now that I have this incredible contrast that has become stronger and stronger, it's becoming easier to be okay with the rejection or the judgment. You're not the same person that you once were. Actually, I'm the same person. I'm just not pretending to be somebody I'm not.
Yeah, 100%. That's it in a nutshell. That's it. And you said it so beautifully that, that joy that you feel, well, I'll say when I am being fully myself, who I truly am, the amount of aliveness that I feel. And that's the thing, like I continually say throughout the podcast, and I keep going back to when I was young and in nature, like I can remember, and that's what you say all the time. It's a remembering.
Right.
I can remember being in the snow. I can remember swimming in the lake. I can remember playing in the mud, playing in the leaves, and feeling 100% alive. Like just one alive and one with the world, with nature, with something
Right.
bigger than myself, one with me. Like there was total connection, no separation, total connection and no separation. And as soon as as I got older and started putting on the masks, that created separation from me and the other.
Oh, so good, because it's a false sense of connection, right? So we are fulfilling these roles and conditioning, and we're thinking we're fitting in and being accepted because we're fulfilling these roles, but we're actually creating disconnection from self and others because they're fulfilling their roles to meet the roles we're meeting. And in reality, I mean, it's that image that you see that goes around on Facebook of I think it was from a Burning Man year where they had the steel structures of the two people back to back, and inside were the two inner child, their real self. Like,
I think I might have seen that.
And so there's this longing for connection, but we are actually, I think we've been so conditioned not to be connected to source, to everything, that I just lost my train of thought, that we're conditioned for disconnection. So connection, that truly being seen and stepping into our power, is scary as all get out.
Yeah.
But when we touch it, we realize it's exactly where we need to be, because it's
it's 100% where we need to be. And that's why I say, like, we do say all the time, be careful who you let yourself be seen with.
Right.
And I'm starting to say, I don't know, because that is, on some level, it is a mask and it is suffocating. Exactly. Maybe what needs to be done then in that case, if there are people where you cannot be 100% yourself with, because they're not, then you need to not have them in your life.
Or at least give them a chance.
Say more about that.
I mean, maybe if it's someone who's closer, with the course that we have coming up, Aligning with Your True North, we talk about this, right? So I won't go into all the details, but we talk about humans, the people in our life, in reference to a lantern. And so they're on the outskirts, right? Or maybe they're on the inner part of the lantern. I won't go into all the details, but just as a tidbit, to reel you in, right? But if we're not allowing, like, let's just say it's a family member, like you're playing the role of daughter, you're playing the role of sister, you're playing a close enough family connection that you have decades of years with. They've known you since you were little. So I want to talk about like that long familiar line, just because it's harder to show our true self sometimes with family. And we have lots of history with family, and there's lots of roles within family. So it's just an easy one to grab. So imagine your sister, your brother, your parent, whatever. And so you can't just leave them, right? Culture tells us you can't leave your family. They're your family. Blood is thicker than water. So there's so much conditioning with that. And so you have that choice. You're becoming in more connection with yourself, more connection to source, all of that. But this person, you haven't actually shown your true self to them because you're afraid of rejection because of all the history and the time that you may have been rejected as a child, potentially. But if we're not even giving them that opportunity to see who we are we giving them a chance either, or ourselves?
That's,
you know what I'm saying?
I do. You just hit a chord within me, because that goes right back to what I was saying in the beginning of this episode, how the masks can have layers to them.
Right.
So like that would be one of those kind of underlying insidious layers of like, okay, yeah, so, but I'm still afraid to be seen. Like you said, give the person a chance to see who you truly are. And in my mind, I've created a storyline of, well, I've created the separation. I'm going to be honest and say, I can say in my relationships, I have created the separation. I created the wall because I wanted to armor up and protect my heart. And what I'm learning now as we're doing this work together is that what I want to do, I keep talking about nature and source, but what I want to do is live from my heart. I want to live wholeheartedly and in my heart, not in my mind, in my mind of being afraid of rejection, because that's where that's coming from.
Right.
That's coming from all those past experiences.
And isn't there also that layer of the people pleaser? Like, well, I've always done this within this relationship. So now if I do, so it's there. So that's how all those other masks can show up too, not just in protecting your heart, but how it's that role that you've played.
Because if I play the role as people pleaser, then I know that they'll be happy with me.
Right.
And so then therefore my heart will be protected, because if I take the risk, and this is what this is the theme. If I take the risk, I come upon that precipice of, well, let me just share, like with one of those family members, let me just share who I truly am.
Yeah.
And I don't please, and I don't stay in that role. Well, they might completely look at me like I'm an alien, and that could be a real possibility.
Yeah.
Or just say like, no, not going there with you on that. Or I don't really care. That's really more what I'm so afraid of. I don't really care. I don't really see that. I don't see you. I don't know what you're saying or whatever. And so therefore there's that rejection piece.
Right. And I think it's important too to understand and recognize. So let's say you do show up as you are, releasing the roles, and you get a response that isn't the fantasy response we want. So the expectation. And then it's really important that we're mindful that we don't go into judgment of the other.
That is what and when we go,
because that's a protection piece, right?
It is. That's how I armor up, and that's how I build the wall, is because, well, then I just start to judge the other.
Right. Oh, if only you were on the path. If only.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You're projecting on me when in reality, you could be projecting on them.
So there have been so many golden nuggets in this episode, like truly so many freaking golden nuggets. And
I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We did.
Sorry,
we are just scratching. No, I know. Maybe this might be a whole series. We are just scratching the surface on this, because this is so important, right? So for people who are listening, and like I've experienced as myself, if there are people that are listening and they're feeling either suffocated, lonely, disconnected,
right,
and not feeling satisfied in the relationships in their lives, this can very well be, and I'm not saying it is for sure, but can very well be what's percolating under the surface, below the line of consciousness, that we aren't even aware of. I mean, I'm aware of a lot of it, but I'm having even more ahas just in this episode myself. And I'm doing this inner work constantly.
Right.
So there's all this that's percolating below the surface. I think there's a course or a series in this right here. There's so much to teach about this.
Exactly. And there's so much to unravel. And I mean, co-creation, 100% responsibility. I mean, there's so many layers, because our relationships with others, right?
Yeah.
We're not, because, I can be me with you, right?
Yep.
Okay. But you are not like a lot of other people in the world, right? So And then you have to be careful, the judgment piece, but then it's we talked about, well, we can't just escape life and just live with people who are someone that we can communicate with and feel like we can be our true selves with, because that's not life either. So how do we navigate the world of form and still stay connected truly to self, source, nature, others, and be an acceptance of how the relationship is as it is versus what we wish it could be too. Well, so there's all of that as well.
There's
it's not just like, oh, take off the mask and you're going to have this thing. You might get rejected, you might not, and you're going to be okay. But then you have to actually deal with that situation. You just became vulnerable. You were not met with what you had hoped to be met by. Now what?
Well, it's a lot of, I mean, right off the top, it's a lot of this work of building this inner strength, this self-assuredness, this knowing, the Marianne Williamson quote, when you can say, when I said the statement of who am I to do blah, 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 Marianne Williams say, well, who are you not to? When you're in that space of being able to accept that and embody that, like, who am I not to own my place in the world? When you're in that place, there's so much inner strength, self-love, self-assuredness that you don't give up about what people think and what people are going to say.
Because you're in such acceptance.
And alignment. Exactly. You're in such alignment and acceptance of yourself. And you know that what you say and how you show up, you're doing it from your truest self, from your heart, and with integrity. And even if it comes out messy or whatever, when you're coming from that space of truth, and that's what it is, when you're coming from a place of truth, then that's all you need. It doesn't matter what the other says or does.
And if you are activated by what the other says or does, it's shadow work.
Yes.
You have to, explore the shadow part of that. You have to explore your projection, your own story you're creating around their reaction to you. So, but if you're in alignment and your truth, you're okay with what shows up in front of you. Does that make
100%.
sense?
It does, 100%. And so then going back to your question or your point about, well, how do we live in the world with these people? So there's a lot of things. These people, right? How do we live with these freaking people? What is wrong with them? There we go. All right. Honestly, let's do a cliffhanger and let's maybe use this for an antidote.
Okay.
Because there's so many things.
All right. So we have to write this down so we remember to do it.
Yes. Okay.
So how do we live? Basically, how do we navigate
the waters?
The waters. Which was the one we were talking about, didn't you?
Yeah, that's the next one.
So
okay, people, stay tuned.
Other human beings.
Other humans. The waters.
We can be real. Like, I have a cat sleeping right here. I have a cat sleeping right there, and I have a dog sleeping under there. Do I ever even question being me with them?
No.
Never.
It's always the relationship. So how do we navigate the waters? The waters are relationships, other people.
Right.
Because you're right. For the most part, a little bit when we're alone, we're okay. When, you said, your pets, your animals, you're 100% yourself.
You're outside.
You're outside. Nature. Yeah. Nature.
It's the humanness.
It's the humans. It's the relational piece that we need to explore. And we are moving into, which is so apropos for the beginning of season 2,
right?
We're moving into relationships. We'll see how far it goes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Have to chew on.
Okay. Chew on. Yes. Well, anyway, thank you so much, listeners, subscribers, for joining us on this episode of our podcast. Wow, what a journey this last half hour was.
No kidding. I'm looking forward to 2021.
Oh my goodness. So excited. So much to explore. So we, again, beginning of the new year. So completely grateful to
Very.
have all of your support. The number of people that are listening, have listened in so many different countries. We have a growing population of males beginning to listen to us, which is so amazing and awesome. And again, as always, we do have a Masks Off Facebook community. If you are not a part of that, you can join.
Yeah, we'd love to have you in there. We just touch base every week, so you'll get
Yeah.
a little tidbit of, rebalancing and reconnecting to yourself and with others. It's a community.
And with others, it's a community. And anything that we say in the podcast that might strike a chord or have a question or you want to hear more about, that's a perfect place to tell.
Definitely.
So you can join the Masks Off Facebook community to get some questions answered as well.
Yes, please join us.
All right, everyone. Have a good one.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Bye.